Death does not always end a story. Sometimes, it forces a new one to begin. For Sango, the moment his physical presence disappears is not the moment his influence fades. It is the moment it changes form, because absence, when attached to power, does not remain empty for long. It demands explanation. The empire he leaves behind does not respond with a single voice. Cannot. What he was, what he became, what he did, none of it fits into a simple conclusion. And when a story resists simplicity, people do what they have always done. They reshape it. First, the idea is quiet, almost cautious. Sango did not die. It is not declared openly, not immediately. It moves through the same channels that once carried fear. Whispers, private conversations, exchanges between those who witnessed the aftermath and those who are trying to understand it. Because to accept his death as final is to accept that everything he represented ended in isolation, in failure, in a moment that contradicts the image of power that defined him. And that is difficult to reconcile. So the narrative begins to shift, not by erasing what happened, but by reframing it. The king did not fall. He transformed. This is where belief takes shape, not as denial but as reconstruction. Because if Sango's power was never entirely human, then his end does not have to be either. The elements he was drawn to, fire, thunder, lightning, do not disappear. They remain. They continue to exist beyond him. And in that continuation, a connection forms. The thunder that breaks across the sky is no longer just a natural event. It is a signal. The lightning that strikes without warning is no longer just force. It is present. And in that reinterpretation, Sango's identity evolves. No longer confined to the limits of a king, he becomes something else. A deity, a force associated not with governance, but with the elements themselves, the god of thunder and lightning. This transformation does not happen in a single moment. It develops, it spreads, it takes root across the land, reinforced by repetition, by ritual, by the need to give structure to something that cannot be easily explained. Communities begin to formalize what was once uncertain. Practices emerge, offerings, invocations, ways to acknowledge the presence that is now believed to exist beyond the physical world. And with that, the emotional tone begins to change. Fear shifts, not removed, not forgotten, but redefined it. Because fear, when directed at something uncontrollable, often seeks a new form, one that allows it to coexist with acceptance. Reverence. The same force that once created tension within the kingdom is now positioned as something to be respected, to be honored, to be understood as part of a larger system beyond human control. This is how power becomes divinity, not through proof, but through meaning, because what Sango represented, strength, intensity, dominance, unpredictability, does not disappear with his physical absence. It persists in the way people interpret the world around them. The storm becomes more than weather. It becomes memory. It becomes an explanation. It becomes continuation. And as this belief spreads, it moves beyond the boundaries of Oyo itself. Across Yoruba land, through communities connected by shared history, shared language, and shared understanding, the idea of Sango evolves into something collective. Not just a figure of the past, but a presence that exists in the present, and even beyond. Because as people move, as traditions travel, as culture extends across distance and time, the identity of Sango moves with it. Adapted, preserved, reinterpreted, but never entirely lost. From king to symbol, from symbol to deity, from memory to worship. This is the final transformation. But transformation always raises a question, because every new narrative is built on what came before it, and what came before Sango's transformation is not simple. It includes power, it includes destruction, it includes isolation, it includes an ending that does not align easily with divinity. And so, beneath the rituals, beneath the reverence, beneath the certainty that develops over time, there remains a tension, a question that does not disappear even as belief strengthens. Was this transformation a reflection of truth, or was it something else? A way to reconcile what could not be accepted, a way to preserve power in a form that could not be questioned, a way to ensure that the story of a king did not end in a way that diminished everything he once represented. Because belief at its core is not just about what is real. It is about what is necessary. Necessary to explain. Necessary to remember. Necessary to continue. And in Sango's case, that necessity shaped a narrative that would outlive him, not just as a man, but as an idea. An idea carried in storms, in thunder, in the sudden flash of light across the sky. An idea that refuses to settle into a single conclusion, because the line between man and God, once crossed, is never clearly defined again. Was this belief truth, or a way to hide a king's tragic end? Long after the fire fades, long after the voice of a king is silenced, what remains is not the man, but the imprint he leaves behind. Sango does not disappear into history as a closed chapter. He expands within it. Across Yoruba land, his presence settles into structure, not as memory alone, but as part of a living system of belief. Rituals form around his name. Practices emerge that do not simply recall him but engage with what he represents. The rhythm of drums, the invocation of power, the acknowledgement of forces that exist beyond human control, these are not symbolic gestures. They are continuations, because in this context, Sango is no longer confined to a timeline. He exists within a framework where past and present are not separate, where the same force that defined him is believed to still move, still act, and still respond. This is where legacy becomes function. Within the Yoruba religion, Sango stands as a figure of immense significance, not just as a deity associated with thunder and lightning, but as a representation of power in its most concentrated form. Power that commands attention, power that demands respect, power that does not operate within the limits of negotiation. But even within that reverence, there is precision, because Sango is not approached casually. He is not reduced to a simple symbol of strength. He carries complexity, and that complexity shapes how he is understood. He is invoked for authority, for justice, for decisive force. But underlying every invocation is an awareness, clear, deliberate, that the same power being called upon is not inherently restrained. It must be respected, because it does not distinguish between admiration and consequence. This understanding does not remain confined to one region. As people move, as histories travel, and as traditions extend beyond their point of origin, Sango's identity moves with them. Carried across distance, preserved in altered environments, but retaining its core structure. Within diaspora traditions, his presence adapts without losing its essence. The names may shift, the expressions may evolve, the rituals may take on new forms shaped by new surroundings, but the foundation remains intact. The association with thunder, the connection to force, the recognition of power that exists beyond human limitation. This is not dilution. It is a continuation under different conditions. And through that continuation, Sango's reach extends far beyond the boundaries of the empire he once ruled. But legacy is not defined by reach alone. It is defined by meaning, and Sango's meaning is not singular. He stands as a symbol of power, undeniable, commanding, and absolute in its presence. A figure that represents what it means to hold authority without compromise, to act without hesitation, to embody force in its most direct form. But alongside that symbol, there is another layer, a warning, because the story that leads to his transformation is not one of controlled ascension. It is marked by excess, by intensity that exceeds its limits, by moments where power is not balanced, not restrained, not redirected. And those moments are not removed from his legacy. They are part of it. This creates a duality that cannot be separated. Sango is worshipped, invoked, respected, positioned as a force worthy of acknowledgement and engagement. But he is also feared, not in contradiction to his worship, but as a component of it. Because fear in this context is not rejection. It is recognition. Recognition that power at this level is not neutral. It does not operate within safe boundaries. It does not guarantee protection. It carries the potential for both creation and destruction. And that potential is never ignored. This is what makes his legacy enduring. Not just the transformation from king to deity, but the tension that remains within that transformation. The awareness that behind the reverence, there is history. Behind the rituals, there is consequence. Behind the symbol, there is a man whose story does not resolve into simplicity. Because Sango's legacy is not clean. It is not comfortable. It does not offer a single interpretation that removes contradiction, preserves it, and in doing so, it forces every generation that engages with it to confront the same underlying reality. Power can elevate, power can define, power can transform, but power, when pushed beyond its limits, leaves a mark that cannot be erased. And in Sango's case, that mark did not fade with time. It became the very foundation of how he would be remembered, worshipped, and feared. History survives because someone chooses to remember. Across Africa, entire kingdoms rose and fell. Great rulers changed the course of nations. Warriors, scholars, inventors, queens, and visionaries shaped civilizations whose stories deserve to be told with accuracy, depth, and respect. Yet many of these stories remain unknown. Some have been forgotten. Others have been reduced to a few sentences when they deserve entire chapters. That is why Omoluabi Archives exists. Every video on this channel is part of a larger mission to uncover the people, empires, traditions, victories, mysteries, and turning points that helped shape Yoruba history and the history of Africa itself. If you believe these stories deserve to reach more people, take a moment to support this work. Click the like button. It tells YouTube that these histories matter. Share this video with friends, family, students, and anyone interested in learning about Africa beyond the versions often found in textbooks. And if you are passionate about discovering the untold stories of our past, subscribe to Omaluabi Archives and turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode. Every like helps preserve history. Every share helps spread knowledge. Every subscription helps bring more forgotten stories back into the light. The archives are vast, and we are only beginning the journey. Subscribe now, and together, let us continue exploring the remarkable history, legends, empires, and cultural heritage of the Yoruba people and the African continent. This is Omaluabi Archives, where history is remembered, preserved, and brought to life.